This barn may be typical of many you would find on American farms. However, its owner was far from ordinary. It was General and President Dwight Eisenhower.
Architect of victory in Europe, in World War II, he swept the forces of Hitler to total defeat.
After commanding the Allied forces that won World War II, Dwight Eisenhower became president of Columbia University in 1948. But the Eisenhowers were looking for a home outside of New York City.
For the President and his First Lady, the Eisenhower farm at Gettysburg is a welcome retreat from the storm and stress of politics, national and international.
Eisenhower didn't want a house somewhere. He wanted a farm because, as he said, he wanted to take a piece of land and leave it better than he found it.
They purchased a farm here in Gettysburg, but with Eisenhower's busy schedule and his subsequent election as president in 1952, they rarely saw the place until its renovation in 1955. The enclosed porch of the farmhouse became quite important in the history of the nation. World leaders such as Nikita Khrushchev, Charles de Gaulle, and Winston Churchill all made visits here.
They would sit out here on the porch and just get to know each other one-on-one. Eisenhower said he liked to take the measure of the man, and this informal atmosphere was really very conducive to that.
But Eisenhower would also take those leaders on a tour of the farm, notably the barns housing his Angus show herd.
We often joke here that when visitors came by, the president would never show off the medals and ribbons he had earned during the war. He showed off the medals his cattle had won at the cattle shows and took you down to the cattle barn to do that.
It was usually a leisurely stroll. However, Churchill's visit to the barn made the Secret Service quite nervous.
During his tour, as he was walking along the stalls here, he would give each of the cattle an affectionate slap on the rump. And that drove the Secret Service crazy. They thought at any moment the Prime Minister's lights were going to be kicked out by one of Eisenhower's prize-winning bulls.
Perhaps the most noteworthy visit was Soviet Premier Nikita Khrushchev's trip to the U.S. in September of 1959. The two leaders discussed the Berlin Ultimatum and disarmament, but they also made time for a trip to Eisenhower's farm.
The herdsman, Bob Hartley, remarked that of all the world leaders that he talked to in the show barn, Khrushchev was really the most knowledgeable on agriculture, and he asked some really good questions.
But Bob Hartley was also impressed with the president himself and the deep interest he took in the Gettysburg farm.
One day he was listening to Eisenhower deliver the State of the Union address on the radio. And then 10 minutes later his phone rings, he picks it up, and there it is, the president on the other end asking how his cattle are doing. 10 minutes after having addressed the entire nation about the important issues of the day, he's asking about his cattle.
Perhaps it's an overstatement to say that the cattle that resided in these stalls helped secure world peace. However, we do know that Eisenhower's tours with world leaders in this barn certainly helped those men understand each other better. And perhaps it did make a difference when they discussed the leading issues of the day. Traveling the countryside in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, I'm Andrew McCrae.